Welcome to the deep dive. Today, well, you're getting a front row seat to a public brawl that's way more than just two egos clashing. We're diving into this really nasty feud between Elon Musk, the big cheese at Tesla, and Peter Navarro. Remember him? Trump's top guy on trade. Oh yeah, Navarro. Our job today is pretty simple. Yeah. We're going to dissect this mess, figure out what they're really fighting about, and, show you what this whole damn thing tells us about the folks who are calling the shots on our economy. Exactly. And we've got the direct quotes, the news reports, the real deal. This isn't just some whisper campaign or internet rumors. Right. And what's truly revealing, I think, is how this personal animosity just rips open the gaping holes in the economic policies of, a major political movement. And hey, let's not waste any time with pleasantries. This thing kicked off with Elon Musk basically going nuclear on Peter Navarro. Nuclear. Yeah. He straight up called Navarro a moron. Not mincing words, folks. Then he twisted the knife and said Navarro was dumber than a sack of bricks. Those were his words, direct from the source. Think about that for a second. The head of a massive American company publicly stating that a high-ranking economic advisor is, less intelligent than an inanimate object. The sheer bluntness of that attack it's remarkable. It's not some polite disagreement over tax rates or something. No. It's a brutal personal takedown. And the immediate question has to be, how do you even respond to something that savage? Well, Navarro's response, you might want to sit down for this. When Kristen Welker on Meet the Press asked him about Musk's insults on national television. Right. Mind you. Right in the spotlight. Navarro's brilliant reply was, Elon and I are great. It's not an issue. Scoffs. Great. Seriously. Elon and I are great. After being publicly annihilated like that, it's almost comical if it weren't so damn serious. That reaction or, lack of reaction is actually quite telling. It could be sheer denial, maybe. Or it could be a calculated move to just avoid engaging with such a sharp critique, especially from someone, outside their usual echo chamber. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests a potential inability to seriously even consider a dissenting viewpoint. Precisely. This isn't just some celebrity spat. As one of our sources rightly points out, what you're witnessing is a glaring spotlight on the utter dysfunction and intellectual bankruptcy of the economic garbage that the MAGA folks were trying to sell us. And Navarro was one of the chief architects of that disaster. And what's fascinating to consider is the backdrop, right? The context against which these insults are being hurled. We're talking about very real economic policy, specifically the tariffs. Those tariffs that Navarro championed with such fervor. These weren't just abstract ideas. They had significant consequences for global commerce, for American businesses trying to compete, and ultimately for the prices you paid for goods. Right. So to really get the core of this disagreement, remember that tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods. Navarro argued they protect domestic industries, while Musk, who runs a global manufacturer, sees them as just jacking up costs and hindering competitiveness. Exactly. And here's Musk, whose company, Tesla, operates globally, but also has huge manufacturing here in the US. Major. Directly attacking the very foundation of Navarro's economic worldview, those beloved tariffs. And this whole drama, it played out on national TV. Yeah, with Kristen Welker pressing Navarro on whether Musk had basically won this argument, especially with Trump hinting at maybe, just maybe, easing up on some of those tariffs. And Navarro's attempt to wiggle out of that questioning is incredibly revealing. Instead of directly addressing Musk's very public smackdown or the whole tariff debate, he just dodge. He immediately starts throwing out distractions, talking about Vietnam, non-tariff barriers, VAT taxes. It felt like a desperate attempt to just change the subject, avoid the main point. So why? Why the need to deflect so aggressively? Because at the heart of this, you have to understand, is a fundamental clash of economic philosophies. Musk, and he's been pretty clear about this, is a believer in open markets. Right. Open markets meaning minimal barriers to trade between countries. He thinks it fosters innovation, lowers costs, benefits consumers like you and me. Exactly. He sees tariffs as roadblocks, pure and simple. And here's the kicker. Tesla, his company, actually tops the American-made index. That's huge. They are building more cars right here in the good old USA than any other car maker. So when Musk talks about trade, he's not just spouting theories, he's speaking from the reality of actually making things in America. That's a crucial point. His opinion isn't just academic, it's based on the practical challenges and opportunities of running a major American manufacturing operation in today's world. Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this very public fight just exposes these deep, perhaps irreconcilable divisions within the Trump camp itself about basic economic principles. Yeah, they try to project this image of total agreement, like they're all on the same page. Right. But underneath, there's clearly a significant battle going on over fundamental economic ideas. It's chaotic. And don't for a second think that Musk's critique was mild. He didn't just say he disagreed with Navarro. He called Navarro's claims demonstrably false. That's a serious accusation. It directly attacks Navarro's credibility, and the very basis of his economic arguments really undermines him. So what sparked it? Why did this whole thing blow up in the first place? Well, it seems Navarro tried to downplay Tesla's significance as an American manufacturer. He reportedly dismissed them as just a car assembler that relies on foreign parts, the implication being they weren't a true American success story. Which is just flat out wrong. As Musk himself pointed out, and the data shows, Tesla dominates the American-made index, right? They build more cars in America than anyone else. So Navarro wasn't just mistaken, he was, as our sources put it, peddling outright falsehoods about a leading American company. The irony is just, wow, this coming from a guy supposedly all about boosting American industry. And then, I think it's truly bizarre, we learned about Vara. The fictional economist that Navarro actually invented and quoted in his own books. It sounds like satire, but it's real. It's real. This was a top economic advisor to the President of the United States, citing a made-up person as an expert source. It just raises serious questions about the integrity of the economic advice being given at the very highest levels. And Musk, naturally, wasn't going to let that slide. He rightly mocked Navarro for his imaginary economic guru. Of course. And look, this isn't just a funny anecdote, it makes you wonder about the entire foundation of Navarro's work. If you need to invent experts to back up your claims, how solid can those claims actually be? Right, so faced with all of this, the insults going viral, the policy disagreements laid bare, the Vara thing, Navarro's response on television took another incredibly strange turn. He actually tried to compare Musk's Tesla-facing vandalism at its locations to Navarro himself potentially having to go to jail. Okay, wait. Let's be crystal clear here. Comparing property crime, which is wrong, obviously, to being convicted of contempt of Congress for refusing to cooperate with a lawful investigation into efforts to overturn an election. It's apples and, well, something much more serious than oranges. That is an absolutely insane comparison. It shows a complete lack of understanding of the difference between a crime against property and a potential crime against our democratic institutions. It's a totally false equivalency that should be deeply concerning. One involves damage to physical property, the other involves a potential criminal conviction related to obstructing an inquiry into a fundamental attack on our democratic processes. To even suggest they are comparable just minimizes the gravity of the latter. It's staggering, absolutely staggering. And how did the folks still kicking around in the Trump orbit react to this public meltdown, this train wreck? With utter unbelievable dismissiveness, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, when asked about this feud, between a former top advisor and the CEO of a major American company. Yeah. What did she say? She actually chuckled and said, "Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys." Are you serious? Can you believe that? That casual dismissal should infuriate people. This isn't about childish squabbles. It's about fundamental disagreements over economic policy with real-world consequences for jobs, savings, the future. Exactly. To brush it off as boys will be boys is not just insulting, it shows a profound lack of seriousness, a lack of respect for the issues at stake. It raises a critical question. If they treat serious policy debates with such flippancy, how can you trust them to govern effectively? You can't, you really can't. Exactly. And the central infuriating contradiction here is this. Navarro pushed tariffs supposedly to protect American jobs in manufacturing. That was the claim. Yet he attacked the CEO of the very company that leads the nation in American manufacturing, a CEO who clearly articulated the potential damage those tariffs could cause. It's economic malpractice, just fueled by nothing but ego and a refusal to admit being dead wrong. So let's just recap the disturbing picture of Peter Navarro painted by this whole feud. citing a fake expert in his own work. Run, Vara? Check. Making demonstrably false claims against a leading American company, Tesla, and then making a bizarre and offensive comparison between vandalism and his own potential legal consequences related to his actions after the 2020 election. Check. It's quite a list. And this, unfortunately, isn't some isolated incident. It's a symptom of a much larger problem. It's part of the same old rotten MAGA playbook, isn't it? Seems like it. Substitute baseless bluster for facts. Attack reality when it doesn't fit your narrative. Create chaos and call it strength. And then when the whole damn thing blows up in their faces, just shrug it off and act like nothing happened. And connecting this to the bigger picture, this kind of governance based on conflicting egos, a blatant disregard for facts, dismissing serious issues with childish platitudes, it's simply not sustainable. No, it erodes trust in our institutions, prevents effective policy making, and ultimately it poses a significant danger to the well-being of our country. To all of us. Absolutely. We cannot afford to have people in positions of power who live in some twisted reality distortion field where truth doesn't matter. Yeah, and serious policy debates just devolve into petty insults and utterly ridiculous comparisons. We cannot, under any circumstances, normalize this level of sheer incompetence and intellectual dishonesty. Yeah, you really need to understand the stakes here. What's truly important to take away from this is how this seemingly personal feud just pulls back the curtain on the underlying weaknesses, the contradictions within a significant political movement. Yeah. It offers a stark look at the internal chaos and, frankly, the intellectual emptiness that lies beneath their carefully crafted facade of unity. So listen up. You cannot afford to ignore this sideshow. Don't let them sweep it under the rug with some condescending remark about boys being boys. Please don't. Share this story with everyone you know. Expose this utter incompetence for what it is. Demand better from anyone who wants to hold power in this country. The most powerful weapon you have against this kind of destructive nonsense is your voice and ultimately your vote. Register to vote. Get organized. Vote for sanity. Vote for accountability. Vote like our democracy absolutely depends on it, because make no mistake, it damn well does.